Hello, and welcome back to the Foreclosure Deals Coach podcast. This is a show where we teach people just like you to find, figure, fund, fix, and flip a foreclosure deal. On today's show, we're going to talk about commercial finance, also known as hard money lending for real estate investors, and how you can find the capital you need to do the deals you want to do in 2025. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great show. Hello and welcome back to the Foreclosure Deals Coach podcast. I am your host and Foreclosure Deals Coach, Donny Coram. And again, this is the show where we discuss how real people just like you are finding, figuring, funding, fixing, and flipping foreclosure deals right here in the Colorado market. And one of the things that a lot of investors are worried about is where they're going to get the money to actually do a deal. Now, this is a valid point. I mean, if you've got $300,000 laying around in cash to buy a deal, maybe it's not something you've considered. But for most investors, they're starting with leverage capital or down payment funds. Now, in my program, the requirement for down payment funds is $50,000. That's based on trying to find enough capital to put 15% down on a roughly $300,000 acquisition price. That's about the average of the property price that we're buying right here in Colorado Springs. If we go down to Pueblo, 30 miles to the south, that number reduces a little bit. We're down to about 120 to 125. But because Pueblo's a quote unquote emerging market, a lot of the lenders want a little bit more skin in the game. So you may find yourself putting 20 to 25% down on a Pueblo property. If we're buying at 125, that means your down payment's gonna be 25 to 30 grand. In either case, you're definitely gonna need some seed capital to get started in real estate investing. What a lot of people don't know is even if they have the seed capital, where are they gonna find all of the funds that they need to do a deal? So on this show, we're gonna talk about how the finance side or the fund stage of our 5-step process, which again is find, figure, fund, fix, and flip. How does the fund process work for real estate investors? And more importantly, what can we expect the money markets to do in 2025 as a lot of investors are likely to come back to market as interest rates come back down and buyer demand on the retail side starts to spike up? The best way to start this discussion is to tell you about my very first deal that I did right here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which was on 439 East Bijou. Now that property is downtown Colorado Springs. It is right next to the McDonald's off of Bijou. So you ever been to McDonald's downtown? You've seen this property. I bought this property with a conventional loan. And as the backstory goes, if you watch my original story, I partnered with a potential investor, a buddy of mine who I worked with at my corporate job. We got together and decided we were going to buy a fix and flip property. Not understanding how capital markets worked back then, we went to a bank to get conventional financing. And boy, was that a huge mistake. The reason that was a mistake was simple. Banks are simply not well suited to help investors do deals. There are two reasons behind that. The first reason is that when a bank lends a loan on a 30-year mortgage, they're expecting to get 30 years or so worth of interest. Now, obviously not all loans run the entire length of the mortgage. People refinance and sell, etc., all of the time, but they're certainly not expecting for it to be a short-term loan. So when they do a loan like that, a lot of times banks include a prepayment penalty, which is 2 to 3 years of interest that they're basically guaranteeing on the note. Now, our particular deal did not have that prepayment penalty. Let me take that back. We learned later that it actually had a 1-year prepayment penalty that we weren't aware of when we bought the loan. And this is not to say that that wasn't clearly defined in the paperwork or that we were bamboozled, but rather that if you don't really understand how mortgage finance works, you don't have a degree in finance, maybe you bought a house or two for yourself, you don't know all the details. So when we bought this property, we were unaware that we were also getting a 1-year prepayment penalty. That was discovered later on when we sold the property, and obviously we had to pay the prepayment penalty to get out of the loan when we sold it, so we made a little bit less money on that deal, so that was a bit of a slap in the face. But perhaps more importantly, the underwriting process to get from, hey, we're going to buy this property to selling the home was an absolute disaster, right? And the reason it was a disaster is because the home was a fixer-upper. See, banks, when they lend money, if you go to your local bank or credit union or Wells Fargo or wherever you do your banking and you say you want to buy a home, they're expecting that you're going to live in the property, you're going to get owner-occupant financing, that you have a certain amount of money to put down, et cetera, et cetera. In the investor world, it's entirely different. We're buying property we have no intention to live in, right? We are intending to sell it relatively quickly, and perhaps most pressing to the bank, the condition of that property is subpar at best. Okay, and it's subpar, guys, because if we were buying tip-top shape homes in tip-top condition, we would not be buying those homes for the discount we're getting on the property. The idea behind getting a great deal on an investment property is that it is priced below market because of the condition and or the situation. Now, obviously, we would prefer situation over condition. If you've got a very motivated seller, a good example of that is we're under contract on a property right now that is slated to be foreclosed upon in a couple of weeks now, right? They've run out of options to sell it conventionally. The house needs a little bit of work, but it's not a disaster by any means. But because of the situation, we're getting an amazing deal on it. We still have to update the condition, but the primary motivation was situation. When we're looking for a deal for our clients, my coaching clients, I'm generally looking for situation deals over condition deals, but we do find a mixture of both. Okay, getting back to it, the bank is looking at this property that I'm buying downtown, and they're going, this house needs a lot of work, and I know it needs a lot of work. That's why we're buying it cheap, right? Are you equipped to do the work, etc.? There was a lot more underwriting. Some of the underwriting required the utilities were on. Well, the utilities on this property hadn't been turned on in years, so we had to get permits to turn on the utilities. We had to get contractors out there before we owned the property. It was just a lot of added work that I look back now, and I absolutely positively would not go through that process again because it was nerve-wracking. Here I am buying my first investment property. I'm super excited about getting into this deal, and around every corner I'm getting objections from the bank doing the loan, even though we were buying it at an amazingly low rate. We bought the property for $212,000. Never forget your first one, right? And at the time we sold it without doing much of anything for about $267,000, pocketing for me a net profit of $17,846.32. Like I said, you never forget your first. We managed to get it done relatively quickly after we bought it because we did very little to the actual property to sell it. We also didn't know anything about construction. Basically, everything I could have done wrong on my first deal, I did wrong. The upside to me doing that is now you coming in with me having 400 plus deals of experience later don't have to make the same mistakes that I made. You can make a profit without the pitfalls. But back then, not understanding finance, we went to a bank, went through all the rigmarole, the underwriting process, managed to eventually get it done, but at the expense of my sanity for a while there, and then had to sell the property, finding out later that we had a prepayment penalty that took some of the profit out. The bank got some additional profit. How is the right way to finance property? Well, most clients either use a combination of cash or hard money financing. I'm a hard money broker myself with Traction Capital, my lending arm. And at Traction Capital, we specialize in private and hard money. What's the variable? Well, a hard money lender is a lender that institutionalizes selling money to investors like you. They're working with situations where they know the house itself is not going to be very desirable, right? They know it's going to need some work. They mitigate that risk by escrowing for the repairs. So when you're working on that flip, you're not just borrowing the money to do the deal or buy the house, you're also borrowing the money to fix that property up. Okay, so that's hard money finance. Private lending is along the same lines, but it's people who are not businesses, but rather individuals who have money sitting in either their IRA or they've got money sitting in the bank account. They're not happy with the returns they're getting on a savings account, obviously, 0.1% or whatever a savings account pays right now, or even bank CDs, which can tie the money up for maybe 3 to 5% right now, right? Still a much better return than a savings account, but the money's illiquid. Private money lenders lend money to investors like you and me, and they do those deals so they can make the higher interest rates, 10, 12, even 14% interest on a private note, as opposed to letting it sit in a bank account and accrue very little interest. I work with both hard and private money lenders. I'm what you call a broker. So I'm brokering money between hard money and private money, whatever the best deal you can get as an investor is going to be. And I have the relationships with the hard money lenders who will leverage my experience to give you better terms, or private money lenders who are fully relationship based, right? If you walk in off the street, they've never met you before, the probability of them lending their money to you is very low. But because I've developed these relationships over several decades, I've got access to that capital. Okay, the rates are still very high, but what's really valuable about the hard money and private money relationships is that the money can move relatively quickly. Whereas the underwriting process with that first deal, it felt like it took 2 months, right? I think it actually probably took 4 to 6 weeks. But looking back now, I just remember a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress, a lot of worrying about the earnest money that we had put as a deposit being taken because we couldn't get it funded. The seller, who was a wholesaler on the deal, was super frustrated that we had to keep pushing the closing out because the bank wanted to look for more information about either me as a borrower, my partner as a borrower, or the property, mostly the property. It was just a lot of pain. Okay, hard and private money, you're not going to go through any of that. They are designed to lend on properties that are in lower condition. They escrow for the repairs. What you bring to the table is the skin in the game, the down payment, and ideally some experience. In absence of that experience, you can actually bring in, wait for it, a coach who's got over 400 units of experience to help you to leverage my experience to do deals more cost effectively and allow you to do more deals because you don't have to worry about that. All of this leads into, what does the market look like in 2025 for people who are looking to do deals? Where is finance heading today? Well, obviously, Trump got in office. Some people are super excited about that, especially those who are in finance, because under Trump's regime, we saw a lot of interest rate reductions. We saw business taxes being reduced. If you are in business, Trump was absolutely the right choice for business people, which is why I was a big proponent of Trump getting in. Personal stuff doesn't matter, okay? In the end, if you're in business, you're focused on the money, right? And Trump's definitely going to do that. So in 2025, what we're predicting is that liquidity has been dried up by rates increasing. When rates increase, it's basically because they're pulling the money supply down. It's a supply and demand quotient. There's less money in the market. The government buys back their own treasury bills, so they buy their own money off the market to bring some of it closer. There's less of a money supply, and when there's less money in the market, then the rates go up, and that's where we are today. In the very foreseeable future, guys, my belief is that money is going to start flowing. And I got to tell you a story. When we were really killing it in 2021 and 22, in 2020, for instance, my team and I, my wife and I, did 40 deals. In 2021, we did 47 flips, and in 2022, 45 flips. And we were on track in 2022 to do 60 that year. If the market hadn't converted as quickly as it did in interest rates, we definitely would have hit 60 in 2022. However, during that time, funding got extremely easy. With rates as low as they were, money was flowing. You remember that? Remember the people were overpaying for property and there was literally money in the streets. For us, we were financing with some hedge funds that were largely cryptocurrency focused, which means they're backing the money they had made. In one case, I had one fund I was working with that had over, I want to say $50 billion available to them, and they had made a lot of it in the crypto market. Okay, so they wanted to deploy that crypto money because they wanted to take it out of crypto, convert it back into US dollars. And the best way to do that, in their opinion, was to convert it into real estate notes. So they were buying the real estate notes, basically using crypto, financing those deals. And obviously, when the notes were sold or the property sold, they got their money back in US dollars. So it's like a legal, but very similar to a money laundering operation designed to take the money out of crypto and turn it into US dollars. Okay, as a result of that motivation to move money, they didn't want anything down. Can you believe that? I was doing deals at 100% financing, and the conversation went a little like this. Hey guys, I got another one. They're like, okay, where do we wire the money? How quickly do you need it? Right? And so when in that regime, we were running a lot of money. We were speculating on a lot of deals because that's what flipping is. It's speculation. But when the market was increasing at the pace that it wasn't very speculative to know that in 6 months, the house could be worth 5 to 10% more than it was worth at the moment that we bought it. That was a no-brainer. When the government raised the interest rates, they were trying to take speculators like me out of the market because we were driving the prices of everything up. Okay, we were part of the problem in a lot of ways. And although I really enjoyed those times. We affectionately look at them as the good old days. We cleared over $1 million in take-home profit during that time. It's now hard to picture where all that money went and if we're ever going to see a market like that again. It seems unlikely when you speak of it today. That being said, the market is changing. And under Trump's rule, I believe that interest rates are going to come down, money is going to start flowing, and the hedge funds and private money lenders of the world are going to look to start pushing capital into the market. Again, for you as a new investor or even a slightly experienced investor, what they want to see is skin in the game or down payment and experience. It's not as much based on credit score because it is asset-based lending. Asset-based lending means they're funding the deal itself. And put it in their perspective. If you're buying a property for $300,000 that is worth $425,000 once it's fixed up, if you screw up and don't pay them back for their money, they've got an asset worth $100,000, $125,000 more than you paid for it, and they made you put 15% down. So you owe $245,000. They're into this property for $245,000 or $255,000, give or take, right? On an asset that's worth $425,000. Kind of a no-brainer, right? Obviously, they want to do as many of those deals as possible. If you've got experience, you've mitigated their risk because they know that you know what you're doing. So they're going to leverage that experience so you can put that money out. And they're still charging a very high interest rate by comparison. Even though conventional rates are now up in the 6s and 7s, hard money rates didn't really go up much. They were always about 12 to 13. They might have hit 14 for a short stint there. But unlike the conventional market that went up drastically, hard money makes so much money on interest, they didn't need to increase their interest rates to keep doing deals. So they're still today on the low end 10%, on the high end 14%, averaging right in between those two. About 12% is what you expect to pay on interest on these deals, which is really high, especially if you're going to pay that interest over a 30-year period, right? But if you're only going to be financing the property for 90 to 120 days, do we really care what the interest rate is? We don't. After I did that first deal, I realized that hard money was the route to go, but just because of the term hard money, doesn't it sound like, do you imagine like a gangster type guy, with a cigar, go, where's my money? That kind of thing when you hear hard money? Exactly. So I was nervous like you might be when you hear about hard money. It turns out hard money guys are just normal guys like us. They just work with investors specifically, and they have terms that require that you're not going to be a hassle for them, right? They want to collect their interest rate. They don't want to deal with you or that property. They just want their money to come back in monthly payments wise on a really high interest rate. They can live on that and make an effective living doing just that. Okay, so you as an investor should know that as we head into 2025, the belief system is as conventional rates come down, there will be more buyers in the market, increasing buyer demand, and potentially raising prices on housing again. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine house prices going higher than they are right now? Well, don't imagine it. It's going to happen. Inflation, just by design, prices of things will always go up. The increase in real estate has been about 6% annually for the better part of 20, 30 years. Not to say that there haven't been down years, but if you average out the real estate market over the entire time it's been around, 6% is still the norm. Okay, so prices are going to start heading upwards. Why haven't they in the last couple of years? High interest rates have equaled low demand. Low demand means less buyers. Less buyers are to push the market up. Plus, there was a change in the real estate agent market that had a big impact on the number of agents in the market and how they are compensated. So that had an impact. Just a lot of things happening in real estate. My prediction, you heard it here first, okay, is that in 25, you're going to see stability in the real estate market again. Not massive increases right out of the gate, but stability. And that means investors are going to come back to market and lenders are going to come back to market. The access to capital has never, and I mean never, been stronger than it is right now. People don't think that because the market went up that lenders pull back and et cetera. Quite the opposite. They would much rather be lending money out there. The reality is most investors smartly really pulled out of the market to determine what was going to happen next. And that's been about the last year or so. There's been a huge hesitation because if we're not sure how long it's going to take to sell a property on the open market, it's difficult to gauge your holding costs and determine the profitability on the deal. When things were moving on at a decent clip and we knew we could sell that property in 30 days or less, or in 2020 and 21 is more like 30 minutes or less. because houses were flying off the shelves so quickly. It was a no-brainer to borrow money at 12 to 14% interest if I knew I was going to sell that property once we had it fixed in a matter of hours. And that was the truth of the market we were in 2020 and 2021. While I don't expect it to get that crazy again, I do expect that it's going to be consistency and predictability in the days on market and retail. Buyer demand will get back to some semblance of normal, and that semblance of normal will allow building to start kicking back up again. So developers are already getting back in the game. Flippers like you and I can hop back in the market and have the confidence that the property will sell in a reasonable amount of time. Again, I think in 2025, and the lenders, most importantly, are going to be eager to deploy capital that's making much less interest in safe investments like mutual funds of the market, or worse still, savings accounts, and et cetera. They're going to want to redeploy that capital and start making a lot more money on those deals. And in order for us to get out in front of it, you just got to bring your experience and your desire to make money in real estate investing. The good news is my team and I handle most of the heavy lifting for you. Okay, we find the deal on your behalf. We analyze the deal with you and for you to verify that's a solid deal. We fund the deal using my lending partners, fix the deal using our construction teams and project management team, and then sell the deal using my in-house agent who offers a substantial discount against retail. The net benefit is anybody can do this. Anybody can make a great living doing it. It's just a matter of having the investment capital to get moving and know where the market is heading. I think things are positive. I think you're going to find that you're going to see a lot more activity in the investing market. And with all the capital that's going to be available in hard and private money, now is the best time it's been in quite some time to start investing in real estate and start your investing journey. So that's really our show for today, guys. I hope you're excited. I hope you want to get involved. If you're not sure where to get started, I would love to chat with you about starting your real estate investing journey and help you to get from where you are today to where you want to be as a solid real estate investor, doing 3 to 4 deals a year, making an average profit of $25,000 and living your life on your terms with some extra coin in your pocket and building your net worth faster through real estate investing. With that, that's our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to me. Either comment below or message me on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you happen to be watching this right now. I would love to chat with you more about your real estate investment journey and see if this is the right fit for you. With that, this is Donny Coram, your foreclosure deals coach, thanking you so much for tuning in and reminding you now and always, don't buy a house, buy a deal.